with us today is Dr. Tamara Slusher from Claire. It's
Good
a
morning.
pleasure having you here today. We're going to talk about ergonomics today. Ergonomics is just a fancy word for the body position you use when you do different things, when you live your life, your posture, your positioning. We're going to talk about how it affects everything and different ways that we got to watch our ergonomics. Basically, when we're doing things, we want our body to be in a neutral position. We want it to be in the same position like when we're standing. For example, when you're sleeping, if you're sleeping on your side, you don't want the pillow too short that your head is tipped to one side or too tall that it's tipped to the other side. So you want the pillow, the distance from the end of your shoulder to your ear. So all the activities you want to just try to find the proper positioning. Can you tell us about the ergonomics for using a computer?
Computer. Yeah, this is one that a lot of teenagers need to listen to right now. Mine included. Basically, one of the biggest things is laptops are now, the new craze. And one of the issues is that a lot of people spend a lot of time with their head more forward than their shoulders, looking down at a screen long periods of time. One of the biggest issues when you're doing this is straightening out the curve in your neck. And losing your ergonomics by straightening out this curve is going to cause all sorts of other problems that can arise. So that's one thing. Another thing is where is your mouse located? If you're not using a laptop and you're using an actual computer, are you looking at it eye level? Do you have your head tilted up just a little bit to be looking upward, or are you looking down at it? Same goes with the TV as well. So those are important things. Where the keyboard is located is important too. Making sure that you have some kind of support underneath your wrists so that it doesn't lead to carpal tunnel and other issues like that. Making sure the keyboard's pulled close enough to you that you can use it right within the space so that you don't have to have your arms extended outward too much.
Those laptops are terrible because the way they're positioned, you have to be hunched over.
Yeah.
Because the hands are here and the screen is right there, and it's very ergonomically not correct. There's like bases and stuff where you can tip up the screen different.
Yeah, yeah. I've walked into Barnes and Noble and watched these kids, and they're sitting on the floor with their legs crossed, and they're staring down at this screen, and you can see that the arms are probably starting to go numb, and they have to stretch their head back, and then they go back to whatever they're doing, with the college kids and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, those kind of things are important. Other things that are important is the chair that you're using. Making sure that you have a chair that has the proper lumbar support. If you're just in a chair that can twist around and there's no support for your back, you need to get up and move around a little bit, especially if you're going to be at the computer for a long period of time. I mean, those are all important things. Just making your workspace ergonomic and making sure that your head is not tipped down it takes so much weight off the spine that it's a huge relief for the spine.
We have a new condition these days they're calling text neck.
Yeah, text neck.
And that's because people are always looking down when they're texting or playing games. And we're seeing in younger and younger people there's not only the cervical curve straightened out, but actually reversed. It's the small, repetitive, everyday things. It's not the major traumas. You can also get it from repetitive. So
the average American right now, I don't know if you know the statistic, but the average American does 12,000 or more texts in a given month.
Wow.
That is crazy. And if I haven't done 12,000 and you haven't done 12,000, somebody else has done double that or triple that. So, and my teenagers, knowing that they're on their phones all the time, I can see it, and you can see how they'll tend to tip their head down. But, being a chiropractor, I'm always telling them, make sure that you're bringing your head back up, make sure that you stretch out your neck. So, I'm always telling them those kind of things, and what a difference it makes.
It does. And at the end, we're going to talk about exercises. So there's one that helps strengthen the curve in your neck. The third one, we call it the butterfly. So if they do that exercise regularly too, that'll help.
Yes, absolutely.
But more important, don't keep bending your neck forward. Keep your eyes looking up, straighter up.
Yeah. For every hour that your head is down, you need 1 minute with it back to counteract that weight. However, if you already have forward head posture and your head's down and all you do is tip it back, you'll still have it more forward than the shoulder. So the important key is to make sure to bring your chin in before you bring your head back.
Okay.
So that you'll talk during the exercises about inner winter posture and how the importance of it is there. So it makes a huge difference. definitely.
And she's talking about forward head posture. The ear should typically be over the shoulder.
Yes.
So you can have somebody look at you from the side and is your head forward? Because a lot of people it is, so you want to try to get your head back.
It should be behind your shoulder, at least in the middle, if not in the back 1/3 of your shoulder. You definitely shouldn't be tipped forward.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly getting on my husband about that. He's a golf pro, so they don't have the best posture. So when the head is forward, you can see that the neck is starting to straighten out, and what a difference it can really make. So
let's talk about the ergonomics of golf. So golf is a one-sided activity.
yes.
So you're
For the most part, yes.
For the most part. So what can you do to help compensate for that?
One thing that's extremely important that I learned in the first 1 month of golfing was that you have to keep your back straight. And a lot of people get into a hunched over position and they don't realize that they're straining their low back. And it might not make a difference in the first 3 holes that you do, but by the 6th or 7th or maybe even the 9th hole, you're going to start to notice how much strain it's putting on your muscles by having your back not be straight. Not overswinging. Overswinging can lead to throwing ribs out of place and throwing your thoracic region out of place. Scoliosis is very big. So you've got to watch those kind of things. Making sure that the shoulders are lined up, making sure that the back stays straight. Those are all really important things. Keeping your head down, but making sure that when you are, that your head is back when it's down so that your chin is not jutted out forward. So.
Does it help to stretch in the opposite direction?
Yes. Yes. My husband would say you definitely should stretch before every time you play golf and after as well. So just like with any physical sporting activity, before I ran this morning, I stretched before I ran. So same thing after, those are all important things. Absolutely.
What other activity do you think that most people do improperly?
Well, it's getting into the fall season, and I've already had people coming in with the complaints of raking too much. And, the question is what is really too much? Because some people can rake all day and not have a problem, and some people can rake 20 minutes and their back is killing them. So one of the important things is raking is also a one-sided activity. For the most part, people are dominant on one predominant side. And because of that, they tend to always swing the rake in that direction. Just like mopping or vacuuming or anything else, if you pull the rake out too far against you and you extend your arms out too far and then try to pull it back, thinking that you can get more leaves in one swoop, you're going to do damage to yourself because you're going to overstrain the muscles trying to take the rake out too far.
Also, when you reach out far, the scapula, the shoulder blades, are protecting the little muscles that hold the ribs together.
Yeah.
And when you reach out, the scapula retracts, and those muscles are exposed. So if you're reaching and pulling, again, with the raking, the mopping, the vacuuming. So another thing you can do, instead of reaching and pulling, you want to keep your elbows in.
Yes.
That way the shoulder blades don't move to the side. And you can use your feet. Like you said, people think they can get bigger, more
Just
stuff
walk
in one
over
area.
to it, yeah.
You can walk with your feet.
Yeah.
Use your feet
Absolutely.
instead of reaching and pulling, because that reaching and pulling can cause a lot of damage.
Yep. Another one is, as far as Claire is concerned, I know here that they vacuum up the leaves or whatnot, but in Claire they don't, and we have to bag all of our leaves. It makes a huge difference if you take a gigantic pile of leaves and try to bend over and pick up this pile of leaves to throw it in the bag to think that you're, eliminating extra workload, but actually what you're doing is creating more of a lever when you're trying to bend over and have so much weight in your arms and come back up. Squat as much as possible. Make sure you lift with your legs, not with your back. Things that we all know, but we don't think about until after we've already done damage to ourselves. So
Could you also just lay the bag down and rake the leaves, push the leaves into the bag?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because then you're not.
Or use your children.
Yeah.
Works great.
You're talking about bending and the lever. So there is a lever when you bend at your low back, and it puts strain on your low back. And just like a lever, if you have a further distance, it puts more weight. Like a little kid on a seesaw can lift up a big person, or you can use a lever and lift up a car if you're far enough away.
Right.
So if you're holding something far away from your body, it's putting more strain on your back. So anything you're lifting, you want to hold it close to your body.
So just like you were mentioning before, keeping the elbows in close to your side and only lifting within the parameter of your own body, it's going to make a tight in is going to make such a difference. The same goes for reaching. If you reach and you reach out and you reach out to the side and you extend your elbow out too far, you can do damage to the shoulder and your neck at the same time as you're trying to lift something. But if you keep your arms in close and go right within the same parameter of your body, big difference there.
So let's talk about lifting.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on it, but
Yeah. Well, I've learned over the years, definitely just from being a chiropractor and having people that were injured in the office, of the proper ways to lift. We all think that we're invincible, and we think that we can just lift all day long and it's not going to bother us because we're going to go home and rest at the end of the night. But it's when you try to rest that the muscles are already in spasm from overwork and overuse. So lifting is definitely important. One of the biggest things, like especially when you're outside and you're doing yard work, is get someone to help you if they can. And don't ever lift more than your own body weight. You should definitely be lifting less than your own body weight. Kids on average are carrying around in these backpacks 50% of their body weight on every day on average. So just think about the strain that is on their muscles all day long.
We got to make it cool. The backpacks with wheels are cool.
Yeah, those are cool.
But it's not cool for the kids. So
yeah.
And what makes it worse is sometimes they put those backpacks on one shoulder only.
Right.
So you got to make sure to wear it on both shoulders.
Yeah. Just like, the same thing applies outside. If you're going to lift a bag of leaves, you're going to squat down and lift up the bag of leaves rather than bending over.
You're using the big muscles in your legs instead of your back muscles.
Yeah, these are strong. These are meant to handle that kind of weight and that kind of pressure. But what isn't is our back. And a lot of times we strain our back. And that's what we deal with in chiropractic. We have all these people that come into us and they say, my low back hurts. Sometimes they don't even walk in. They almost crawl in, and they're leaning to one side more than the other. Well, that's their body compensating for the fact that they've injured themselves. And intelligent leans are pretty popular right now in time because of all the raking and yard
because
work.
The discs are irritated and putting pressure on the nerves, and so they're leaning to get the disc off the nerve.
Right, and it's our job to educate them and make them understand that they overworked their muscles, and that the more the muscles got overworked, their body had to try to compensate for it.
Also,
so it makes a
there have been studies that the different pressures on the discs. Lifting puts a certain amount of pressure on the disc. Lifting with it away from your body puts more pressure on the disc. Lifting and twisting puts greater pressure on your disc. Lifting and bending puts greater pressure on your disc. So you don't want to bend and lift, or twist and lift, or worse of all, bend and twist and lift at the same time.
Oh, that's the most horrible thing you could do. And a lot of people do it. A lot of people weed and they bend and they twist to the side to grab their pile, and that's the weakest part of the disc. And those discs are made to absorb shock and be cushioned for us. And what happens is when you bend and you twist, you pull and reek the disc one way or the other, and sometimes it can go out towards the spinal cord. And that's when you've got some real problems on your hands. So yeah, what we're trying to do is teach people how can you actually do these motions and how can you protect yourself at the same time. So if you have to bend, if there's no choice and you have to bend over, you definitely don't want to twist to the side. You need to rotate your feet and shuffle over to make that twisting motion instead of actually doing the twisting motion. I have a lot of people, especially the Amish, but I have a lot of people that are doing wood now, getting ready for the winter time, right? So with wood and with splitting wood and stacking wood, there's a lot of people that try to take one step out of the equation, and so they always twist to the side. And we see a lot of damage on one side of the body. We see a lot of ribs out of place. We see a lot of scoliosis starting to form and a lot of irritation on the disc. So yeah, absolutely. Now, one other thing that we need to mention too is about hydration. Make sure before you're doing any activity that you hydrate your body enough so that you don't overwork the muscles too much and dehydrate your body at the same time.
Also, when you're lifting, does it help to use a belt? I see,
Absolutely.
like in Home Depot, they wear a belt, and then when they're going to lift something, they tighten it up. What do you have to say about wearing a?
Yes, when I'm working all day on a couple of the busy days during the week, I will wear a belt myself. All the twisting and all the moving and the standing and the bending and everything that I have to do, it puts a lot of strain on the muscles. And like I said, while you're doing the activity, you don't necessarily feel it. When you finish the activity or when you try to rest is when your body starts to scream at you.
So would you want to wear the belt all the time?
Not necessarily. If somebody has an injury, absolutely. But if somebody doesn't have an injury and they're trying to prevent an injury while they're doing the activity, protect the muscles.
And then take it off when you're not doing the
Yeah.
activity. Because it weakens the body. It's protecting the body, but it also weakens the body because you don't have to use those muscles.
Right.
So you don't want to wear it all the time.
It's limiting the
and
motions.
And you never want to wear it in bed either, even.
Absolutely.
Even
If you're
if you're
sitting
in
more than
injury.
15 minutes, you should loosen the belt. You
Right.
definitely don't want your muscles to fatigue out. You need to keep hydration going to the muscle, but it definitely limits your motions. You can't bend and twist as much to the side. So it's trying to protect your body so that you don't injure yourself.
So what other activities do you think that we need to tell people how to do, or that you're always telling people that the proper way of doing?
Well, there's a lot of mowing the grass right now. You know, even if you have a riding lawnmower, if you're not sitting correctly in the riding lawnmower, if you're not protecting yourself, if you're hunched over, and if you don't protect your back, you can also do damage that way. All that bouncing can definitely not be as good for the discs.
Right.
So that matters. If you're pushing a riding lawnmower, don't try to go over an area, especially an area where the grass is way too tall because we've had so much rain lately. Make sure that you go a little bit, bring it back, and then go over it again, and don't overextend the arms. Just like we talked about with anything reaching out of a cupboard or, you know, reaching up high for something, the same thing applies. You don't want to be pushing a mower and go way out like this and strain the muscles in the low back. Yeah, you can irritate the disc very easily that way. And watch for ruts on the grass, things of that nature. So, you know, even when you're doing activities, like if you're going to sporting events and you're going to activities, even if I'm standing watching a soccer game for one of the kids, I make sure to make sure I'm properly standing there. And if I'm sitting, I make sure to get up and walk around a little bit. So you don't want to be sedentary for too long, those kind of things. So, yeah.
So proper standing. What do you think of high heel shoes?
Well, if I wore high heel shoes, I'd fall right over. That's a no for me. But
As far as the back.
the difference is that you're putting so much pressure because you're bent forward and you're kind of leaning forward by being in a high-heeled shoe and not having the shoulders back enough. It's putting a lot of strain on the back. It also is putting a lot of strain on the feet. And if you're putting a lot of strain on your feet and on your arch of your foot, it's going to go right up the sciatic nerve. It's going to go up your whole leg all the way to the low back, even up into the mid back.
So the nerves work both ways, from the spine and brain down to the feet, and then from the feet up?
We should show this picture that's right next to you that talks about the autonomic nervous system and the importance of understanding that the nerves are controlling every living cell, organ, and tissue in the entire body. And you can see how they're going and distributing all throughout the body
And
in
it's
there.
two ways. It's from the brain to the body and from the body to the brain.
Absolutely. And it goes all the way out to all of our extremities, our upper extremities and our lower extremities.
Neither of which are in the picture, but
Yeah, we need a different picture for that one. But how it can get affected is if we overdo an activity, we should talk about subluxation. And if we overdo an activity and if we actually subluxate the body, how it can affect us. So what we want to do is show this model of the spine. And what you can see on this model is you can see the natural curves of the spine. Okay, and you can see the space between the bones. This is called your disc in here. Okay, now it's transparent in color because it's made of a lot of different nutrients. 70 to 90% of it is water. So we need the hydration to keep these natural curves in the spine. But when we overdo an activity, what can happen is, just like this part shows, is that you can push that disc right out towards the side. And this is showing you a bulging disc here. And look how it's going to affect this nerve. That's a spinal nerve root right there, and this happens to go to our lower extremities. If we want to get very specific, it goes and splayls out to all of our toes from the second, third, fourth, and fifth toe. So it makes a huge difference when we overdo an activity and we put pressure on this nerve. So the bone rotates out of place, and that's what we call a subluxation. In chiropractic, what we actually deal with is removing these subluxations by moving the bones back into place so that the interference will be released from that nerve, and therefore the disc will heal.
So a bulging disc, you can heal it without surgery?
Yes. You know, there's a misconception that if someone has a herniated disc or they have a bulging disc that it can't be healed. In fact, I called a patient yesterday who was waiting on MRI results, and I called him up and I explained to him what actually the MRI said. And I explained to him his had a disc fragment that was actually herniated, not the entire disc. And one of the things that he knows is up to this point, when getting his adjustments, that he has actually been feeling a lot better. He knows what his limitations are. He does wear a back brace. He does ice. He does relax and, you know, and take his chiropractic seriously, and he is limiting his motions. One thing that's important is, even if you feel great, you have to give your body time to heal. You don't just go back to work and go right back into the same set activity. So that's one important thing that we're educating him on.
So when they're trying to heal a disc, are nutrients important? Are there any specific nutrients we need to watch for?
Yes. One of the things that's really important is to understand that the reason that these discs need that water and stay hydrated is to provide that cushion for us to absorb the shock. But there's other vitamins that are in there and other nutrients that are important in that area. And when we overdo activities, we dehydrate those discs, we dehydrate the muscles, and we have to replenish all of our nutrients back to the area. One thing that you hear a lot about on TV and, you know, in the media is about glucosamine and chondroitin and how important that a lot of these superfoods are to our bodies. We need glucosamine because glucosamine helps keep that, you know, elasticity to the discs and to the rest of our joints. So it's not just necessarily just for the spine, it's for our entire body, and it's important for the entire body.
So, how much water should we be drinking to stay hydrated?
Well, I have this special bottle that's supposed to tell me, and it lights up every time I drink 8 ounces of water. And it's supposed to sing to you when you drink 64 ounces of water. However, we're actually supposed to drink half our body weight in ounces of water a day.
So you take your body weight in pounds.
Yes.
And you divide it by 2.
Yes.
And that's how many ounces of water you should be drinking.
Yes. And the average person does not get that much water. I barely get my 64.
Yeah, I have problems getting my water, too.
Yes,
I carry my
yes.
bottle around all the time. So if you're not getting enough water, you want to slowly increase it. You don't want to jump to the amount you should be drinking, or you'll be in the bathroom
Absolutely.
and cussing us out.
Yeah.
So you want to slowly increase your water
It's
intake.
important to note, too, what kind of things are okay to drink besides water that don't do damage to these discs. One thing that's important is about caffeine, and people need to understand that an excessive amount of caffeine is actually what causes our discs to shrivel up as they lose all that water and nutrients.
Caffeine actually dehydrates you.
It dehydrates you.
So that's a negative. If we're
Yes.
saying you have to drink, say you have to have 60 ounces of water or 64 ounces of water, depending on your body weight. If you drink the coffee, that takes off, that
Yep.
subtracts it. You have to add.
So you have to add more to-
So you have to have like 80 ounces.
Yes. Yes. And so
And a lot of the sugary drinks.
yeah, the
also.
sugary drinks are also another
Sugar
thing.
and caffeine drinks,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, if there's anything that you can educate the public and educate your children on, it's to stay away from the sugary drinks. It's to stay away from the extra caffeine. You can get just as much energy from water if you're drinking enough water throughout the day. You replenish your tissues, you will stay energized. It's a God-given fact on that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So that's important. We could show this picture right here. This picture shows what the subluxation looks like from a side view, and it shows how the pinching is on the nerve. Why don't you explain about how that nerve is being affected there? I'll move
Well,
this out of
in
the
this
way.
picture, it's showing what we call subluxation. It's a bone out of place, putting pressure on the nerve. And here, this bone moves slightly backwards. It might be rotated too. You can see the little hole. There's a hole between every 2 vertebrae in the disc. There's a hole that forms where the nerve comes out. This hole is decreased because the disc space in this one's decreased. So it's subluxated, and there's decreased disc space or some degeneration. So one of the aspects of the subluxation is it causes degeneration, so the disc space is decreasing. Abnormal motion, because the bones are fixated or stuck. It's not moving properly. It doesn't get the motion. Things start degenerating, and it starts putting pressure on the nerve. So wherever that nerve's going, and that signal's going from the brain to the body or from the body to the brain, are being interfered with. And then the body's not responding appropriately. So what we do is we get the bones moving properly. We get the disc to start hydrating more, take the pressure off the nerves, and the body starts functioning more optimally.
Some patients come in and they can, after they've been adjusted for a certain amount of time, they can actually note when the muscles are not doing what they're supposed to do, and they can feel those knots in the muscle, and they can feel when those bones are out of place, and they can pinpoint those areas for us. So you start to learn what your body is trying to tell you.
That's what some people complain, that they hear once you go to a chiropractor, you have to always go. It's not that you always have to go, it's that you're more aware of your body, and
Exactly.
you know when it needs to be adjusted.
Right.
It's just like exercise. Once you start exercising, you're feeling great, and if you stop, you know you have to exercise.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that,
Yes.
that it was a problem, you shouldn't have started exercising. You can still start getting adjusted
Right, right.
and get the body working more optimally.
And really, you're not giving up that much time out of your day to keep yourself functioning at an optimum level so that you can do all the activities that you want in a day.
Right. It's like sharpening your tools. It just takes a little time, and it makes everything more efficient.
Absolutely.
So are there any other activities that you notice people coming into your office that they're doing improperly that are causing them to have problems?
Well, I see a lot of the elderly, so a lot of it has to do with usually activities with housework or outside work that makes a difference. We could talk about some housework. As far as housework goes internally, inside the house, we need to talk about some of the things that you can do and how you can alter the position of what you're doing to protect your body, like loading the dishwasher or standing at the sink and washing dishes.
Or taking the clothes from the washer to the dryer.
Yeah,
Most people
yeah.
are twisting and
Yeah,
lifting
you're doing
and
a lot of twisting. Yeah.
You can actually move your feet.
Right. I see people bend over and they lift them out of out of the washer to throw it in the dryer, and all they're doing is bent over in a side position. I mean, that's doing a lot of damage to us, and you don't notice it until you try to stand back up. I use the example with patients all the time. Have you ever bent over and you went to stand back up and you couldn't get back up? That's your body giving you a signal that you've just overdone it with a certain kind of motion. One thing that I like to mention is that when we're standing, there's always gravity that's pushing down on us. When we're sitting, the same thing is going on. Now, if we're sitting and we're hunched forward and we bring our head down, that's a lot of pounds of pressure on the spine. When you're standing and you bring your head forward, the same thing, because we talked already about forward head posture. So one thing that I tell patients to do is take the pressure off your spine by putting it onto an object around you. So if you're loading the dishwasher, put one arm on the counter and lay it on the counter for extra support, and take the pounds of pressure off your spine while you're loading the dishwasher. That's one good thing. And don't be so far bent over. Squat down as much as you can. If you're standing at the sink and you're washing dishes, open the bottom cabinet. Most people have a cabinet underneath their sink. Open the bottom cabinet and stick your foot up on the bottom shelf. Taking just that little bit of weight off your lower half of your spine makes a huge difference in pounds of pressure. So as your husband has mentioned before in previous shows, we've talked about how many pounds of pressure do you have in a certain position. Every time you do a motion where you don't have ergonomics in your spine, it's times 10 pounds of pressure on the spine. So if there was already 100 pounds of pressure on the spine and you times it by 10, now you're at 1,000 plus, and it just makes a big difference when you're doing activities. So, we talked about vacuuming and mopping, making sure that you keep the mop close to you. I've seen the people that stood in one place and decided to mop the entire floor from one place. No, go with your mop. Use your feet. Walk, move a little. Same thing is said about vacuuming as well, okay? And make sure that you're walking with the vacuum. Don't stand in one place and reach and overdo it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to do damage to your disc, and you're going to come in with an irritated back for sure. And sometimes even the shoulders too, because you can overlift obviously with the shoulders and tear muscles with the shoulders too. So it makes a difference. So
we're starting sports. Fall sports are starting in school, like football. Mm-hmm. What are problems that students that are playing football might have?
Well, if you see
or what should
football
they
on
change?
TV and you see some of these crashes that happen, obviously, head injuries are important, but also what's important too is body contact. And most of these sports are physical. And when you have body contact or when you come in contact with a different object, if you didn't stretch and if you didn't properly hydrate your muscles beforehand, you're going to fatigue your muscle and you're going to injure yourself worse just from any injury that you get.
So you want to protect your head.
Absolutely.
So you don't want to use your head as to tackle.
It's not a battering ram.
It's not a battering ram. You don't.
Right.
You want to protect your head. Don't
Right.
use your head.
Yeah.
What else could we say?
Well, there's a lot of, you got your fall sports with running. Running's a big one. So cross country. I see a lot of people out there running and training for the cross country. An important thing is doing your stretches beforehand.
Being
If your
prepared.
calves are starting to seize up, that's telling you that you didn't stretch enough.
Or that you haven't
Stop,
had enough fluids.
stretch.
Yeah.
You need more fluids. Stop, rehydrate yourself, then continue on with what you're doing. Those kind of things are important. Making sure that that your hips are in alignment before you go to do that activity makes a huge difference. Sometimes I try to run and I could tell if my hip's going out of place and
So
get
let's
that
talk
taken
about,
care of.
Let's talk about that posture. So if you look in the mirror, you can actually see that your hips are out of alignment.
Yes. You can put your hands on your hips, and if you find that hip bone and you put your hands on your hips, you can feel and you can see with your hands if one side is off from the other.
And can you see it in any other part of your body also?
You can see it on your shoulders,
So I'm
and
going
you
to
can
look in the
see
mirror
it
and
on
look
your
at my
head.
shoulders and look at the bottom of my ears.
Bottom of your ears.
And they should
Yep.
all be symmetrical. It shouldn't
Yes.
be one higher than the other.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people that talk on cell phones tend to tip their head to one side all the time. And so that's one thing that you're going to see. And also the old-fashioned rotary phones. I guess those are kind of outdated now. But basically, we would always tip our head to one side. And you can see that. You can look at the bottom of the lobes, and you can see when one side is off from the other. And you can see when your shoulders are off. And if you have someone else that lives in the household with you, they can look at you from the side, and they can see if your head is lining up with your shoulder, or is your ear too far forward, and look at the rest of the points along your body too. Does your hip line up with your ankle?
So if I notice my shoulders or my ears or my hips are uneven, does that mean I need to go to a chiropractor?
Yes, it means you can't be straight inside. And if you can't be straight, we call that scoliosis. And there's two different forms of scoliosis, and a postural scoliosis is something that's acquired over time. So unless we change those activities that we're doing and start working on the weaker side of the body and making it stronger and strengthen those areas with those muscles and get those subluxations taken out of the body, it's going to continue to get weaker, and the curves are going to continue to get worse. Yes.
Chiropractor can help with scoliosis?
Yes, yes. So subluxation is, interference that's affecting the nerve, and it's affecting other areas in that area, but the bone is out of place. The longer that bone stays out of place, it moves in a pendulum fashion, and it goes to the bone above and it goes to the bone below. So you can actually be subluxated in more than one area of the body at the same time. So you should get reevaluated for everything at one time. Yes.
What other fall sports are happening now? We got football, we got cross country,
Soccer.
soccer.
Soccer is a big one too.
Again, you don't want to use your head.
I've seen many a kid take one to the head, yes, including my own children. Yeah, that's important. I've taught some ergonomics to my daughter, who's playing goalie most of the time with soccer this year. And, one of the things that's important is making sure to squat, keep her back straight, and have her arms ready in defense, especially at the goal. But if she were to just stand and bend forward, she's going to put a lot of strain on her back. So making sure to stretch and hydrate beforehand too makes a huge difference.
So let's talk about head injuries, because we keep coming back to don't use your head.
Yeah, head injuries are really important. One of the important things about head injuries is that if you don't get your head injury taken care of, if you don't get the curve back to your neck, you're going to continue to do more damage. The brain communicates with the spinal cord, and it goes right through that area. And as your head is more forward than the shoulder, it can cause a lot of problems. I've suffered a head injury myself.
What happened with you?
In 2003, I was in a car accident, and I was in the back driver's seat. And what actually happened was my head went through a side whiplash.
Wow.
We've talked in previous shows about whiplash and how it affects the spine, and how in just a matter of seconds you can go from having a nice normal curve in your neck to a reverse curve going the wrong direction, and what kind of damage it can do to the muscles. But to go through a side whiplash means that the head has to go in this maneuver, and it has to come back to the side and go back through. And as it does, and my head cracked up against the window.
So did you concuss your brain?
So yes, as that happens and it goes in this kind of maneuver, you do a lot of damage to the muscles because they split and they tear. All those little muscle fibers come apart to go through that side whiplash. Also, upon hitting your head, there's a lot of fluid that can build up and you can concuss your head. You know, they talk in sports about how bad head concussions can be and how quick they're going to pull kids from sports because of it. Well, it's the same thing when you go through a car accident or any other major trauma, slip and fall of any kind. So when this happened, it obviously knocked me out and knocked me unconscious. But the other thing that happens too is all the damage that it's doing in the spine at a quick rate. All those muscles have now just been affected. There's been some tears in the muscles, and it just basically travels right on down through the spine. A lot of times you don't necessarily feel it right away. It's within 24 to 48 hours after a head injury or any kind of injury that you're going to start to notice the most damage that's been being done to that area. So after I was released from the hospital, I was going to chiropractic school, so I instantly went to a chiropractor that evening. And had a lot of therapy that was done with me. And I was able in less than 6 months to restore the curve back to my neck.
So we're going to have a special guest in a few minutes. She also went through a car accident with a head injury. Her brain was actually more injured than yours. Mm-hmm. And she's going to describe her journey to healing for us. So it's been a pleasure talking to you now.
Yes, yes.
And we'll see Mary in a second. Welcome back to Ask the Chiropractor. I'm Dr. Tony Rodnick, and today we have a special guest. We're honored to have Mary LaForêt. She's a survivor of a head injury, and hers is an amazing story of determination, perseverance, and the body's ability to heal. She's written 2 books about it, Fighting Back and Fighting Back the sequel. And thank you for coming, Mary. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I am so pleased to be here, Dr. Tony, and tell you about my experiences. You know, I can tell you about the main emphasis of both books. You know, nobody likes to be left behind. And boy, when you have a head injury, like I did, that's exactly what happens to you. And it started in high school when I was 15 years old, after a party, I was hit by a car. I was thrown into another car that was going about 30 miles an hour, and I smacked my head, on the
It's
other car.
amazing you survived that.
Yeah, and I was unconscious about 3 weeks, and when I came to, I had to learn everything, pretty much everything. And, I did get help from some people, but there is not too much out of here. And a couple of years ago, I got this idea, I got this hope. I used to work here, or I volunteer here at MCTV. And the doctors approached me and they said they were willing to give me a free coupon to come in and try it. And the more I went to this clinic, I started, they did an analysis. I had a very scoliotic body, and the body is amazing. It uses scoliosis to compensate. But actually, what I've learned, and in writing my second book, is that if you can overcome this scoliosis that attacks your body, you stand a good chance of regenerating a lot of nerves in your body. And it just amazes me that medicine seems to want to give in. They always, the easiest way is the path of least resistance, and or the path-
you weren't going to go for that. You wanted more than
wasn't.
that was offering.
and I learned through trial and error that maybe I didn't have to. And the first book, Fighting Back, it starts out with a girl destined in a wheelchair, and I refused to sit there. And I got up and I broke my foot. And it was the cast that went on my foot that trained the muscles, or it actually gave my brain a vague idea of where my foot was.
Because until then, your brain was not communicating properly with your foot.
Exactly.
So there was a lucky break when you broke your foot, because it changed your life.
It was probably the luckiest thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And then I just went through my life. You know, I went on to college. I got a degree in nutrition, and then I could not get a job in nutrition because you got to be very, very physical. Unfortunately, with that, or I felt you needed it. It would have been more of a benefit had I had more physical dexterity.
But it's amazing what you can do considering where you came from after the injury. Like you said, you were in a wheelchair. Half your body was paralyzed.
Yeah.
So.
And so the second book I wrote addresses that specifically. It tells you what I did. My arm had subluxed from my body. It was just drooping there. And that was for at least 35 years. So, you know, to come to their treatment, I used to come once or twice a week. And I also did a lot of exercises on my own. At that time, about 3 years ago, I took classes in becoming a health coach and also becoming a personal trainer. And I learned what a lot of experts know about, and there's not too much secret about it. You know, we overcomplicate things. I think medicine overcomplicates some things, and they're not focused enough on what really you need, which is your brain and your foot. And
You need the body to communicate. And that's what chiropractic is about, because we work with removing interference from the brain communicating to the rest of the body.
That is right. And it was the luckiest thing that happened, I think. I worked hard for a little while. You got to be willing to get physically fit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got to have a certain level of stamina.
Yeah,
And
to overcome any illness, you need to have the determination and the stamina.
that's right. And these past few summers, I've been biking for my church. And I've done over 1,100 miles this year.
Wow, that's amazing in itself.
Yeah, well, I think it is. And as I do it more and more and more, I'm learning how beneficial cycling is to the brain and the foot. And I'm able to even figure out by your adjustments what I'm doing wrong in my biking. And I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm just so amazed by you every time I see you. You've come so far and you've done so wonderful.
Well, thank you. And my book is available on Amazon. I actually have a couple copies too. And, you know, I have come to the conclusion that to market anything, you have to take a lot of people with you. And so I am on the board of directors at the Disability Network. And we're going to be starting, coming the new fiscal year, which is October 1, we are going to be starting a group there, a peer support group there of individuals that be interested in working at their body. And I'm taking a group exercise class, and I'll know how to train, or, you know, I already know a lot about training, but I'll learn how to communicate better to classes, I guess.
And I'm sure your story will inspire them too, because if you know there's hope and you know that what you're doing can make a difference, then you're willing to go the distance and try it.
Yeah.
Because before you said they didn't even expect anything.
They did not. And I'll tell you, I read the Bible every morning. And the Bible reading this morning was, God has given me a well-trained tongue to speak to the weary. And I feel that God has given me a well-trained tongue, because I'll know what to say to them or those people in the peer group, hopefully,
Yeah.
In overcoming their injury and how to do it, because nobody really knows how, and it's definitely not fair. We've got people out there, I work out quite a few times at the Midland Community Center, but I don't think they know how to help a significant population. Like, people coming out of strokes and out of head injuries,
Because yours was like a stroke. You actually,
exactly,
yeah.
it was like a stroke.
Yeah.
And they, I say in my second book, it's like the blind leading the blind. They don't know how to tap into your nerves. And these people are just learning the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And, it's a shame, because their body, and what you have said before about the fascia in your body, the fascia system connecting the
All
bones
muscles,
to the
yeah.
nerves, it takes over, especially in this, and your body becomes curved.
I think your body became curved because on one side your muscles were spasming and on the other side they weren't. So it kind of caused the spine to go into the lateral curve, the scoliosis.
Uh-huh. Well, I do think it's probably improving a little bit.
Yeah,
but-
it is. I'm so sorry you had to go through what you did, but you turned it around and you're making it help other people. And
Well,
that is wonderful.
I'm hoping that this little group at the Disability Network will take off. If somebody has a disability, it makes sense to not want to be left behind.
Yeah.
And if you can do something, people helping you should know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I hope to offer them help.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
Well, your fitness is a very important thing to you. I learned the hard way that being paralyzed is no fun, and not being able to move. I can remember being envious of the able-bodied people around me, and I just figured out a way to do it myself. And unfortunately, I had to go through a time where I fell a lot. I was on my knees and I'd scrape them up a bit, but I'm like that runner, or that survivor that keeps going. I eventually got stronger.
Yeah.
But it took years and
Yeah,
years.
it does. It
And-
takes time. People have to be patient.
Well, mine, I'd say I've come to a pretty good grips of reality right now. But it took me
But it's a
40
totally different reality than the doctors predicted right after the injury.
That's right.
And it's all because of your determination.
Exactly. And it was 40 years. And I think the goal should be to help people reach the goal in maybe 5 years or less, or
Because now there's the template, there's the plan to follow that you already went through.
That's right. And
Because a lot of years, 40 years, it was learning and
it was
experiencing
learning, and it
so
was turning that curve around.
I hope that other people can experience it in a quicker recovery. So
That's what because the more you stay like that and you don't properly train that disabled side, the more your bones will chime in and disable you.
yeah. Well, it's been an honor to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
we'll be back in a minute and do our normal exercises. I guess the message from Mary is take care of your body. Do the physical, diet, rest, exercise, attitude. Her attitude made all the difference, and maintenance of the spine. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you. Welcome back to Ask the Chiropractor. Today we're going to go over some spinal exercises, and Mary will be joining us. These are just good spinal posture exercises. The first one, we're going to start with our feet shoulder width apart in a nice inner winter posture. Stand tall, tighten your abdominal muscles, and we're going to, as you tip your head back, you're going to bring your arms up. take a deep breath in and just stretch up. We want to open all those joints and just hold it there. And then breathe out as you come down. And let's do it again. Take a deep breath in and reach all the way up. And then one more time. These are also called spinal hygiene. One more time. So we suggest you do it when you do your dental hygiene. Just a couple extra minutes in the morning and a couple extra minutes at night. The next one is called the hummingbird. We're going to stand same inner winter posture, feet shoulder width apart, arms up, and we're going to make backward circles with your shoulders. And as you do this, you want to focus on the space between your shoulder blades. In our day and age, we're always hunching over, we're texting, we're typing, and we're tightening the muscles in the front and stretching the ones in the back. So now we want to work on the ones in the back. We want to tighten the muscles, work the muscles in the back, stretch the ones in the front. And then you can go to one side. We want everything to be symmetrical, so you can go to the other side. And just do that for a few minutes. And then the third exercise, you want to clasp your hands and hold them behind your head. But you're not going to push with your hands, you're going to push with your head. As you take a deep breath in, you're going to push your head back. And just hold it back. You should feel it on the muscles in the back of your neck. And then breathe out and relax. Again, do this several times. Take a deep breath in. Hold it and relax. One more. And then hold it and relax. And those are the exercises for today. Again, my husband usually ends it. He says, God gave us the gift of life. What we do with our life is our gift back to God. Let's live our life to the fullest and help others. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. We got a happy.